beyond early adoption, mastering warehouse robotic automation for competitive edge. Topic of my conversation today with Noah Maynard. He is a principal solutions architect with Berkshire Grey. Hi, Noah.
Hi, Robert. Nice to see you.
Nice being with me. Thanks for being with me today. So, Noah, are we indeed past the stage of early adoption of robotics in the warehouse, or is robotic automation still in its infancy?
I would say it's definitely not in its infancy. I think we are past the stage of early adoption. That's not to say that it's proliferated fully, but there are folks out there who are, being very innovative with automation, and they're using it as a differentiator in their business.
And I sense some urgency out there too. It's not just something that people are looking at as just some, automation sounds great, but the idea that it becomes essential to embrace automation as a means of gaining a competitive edge. Are you seeing that same thing out there among leaders in the industry?
Yeah, definitely. I think generally speaking, there's not enough labor to do the work that needs to be done. And consumer expectations are changing and rising. They're not going the other way. And it's not tenable anymore to just, throw additional, manual process and manual labor at the problem. Companies need to be, innovative and adopt this in order to meet those changing needs.
Okay, so given the fact that automation is a important, or if not an imperative, move for warehouses today, what can we learn from top global brands in the way that they evaluate automation opportunities?
I think the obvious one is, the value of labor and using automation instead of labor, and basically, in terms of displaced wages. But the innovative companies are seeing well beyond that. The innovative companies are thinking throughout their supply chain, upstream and downstream from operations, at their full network, and thinking about what automation can do and impact, again, throughout the whole vertical that they control. So I think the more innovative companies are seeing it as kind of value in the network, as opposed to just, hey, I used to pay somebody $15 an hour to do this job. Now I'm going to have a robot do it. It's a broader view that the more innovative companies share.
But in fact, they are putting a big emphasis on the notion of value, return on investment, and what this is really going to. You have to link it to results, as opposed to automation just being kind of a shiny thing that looks appealing just because everybody else is doing it, right?
Yeah. Nobody's really in the business of automating just to put a video on YouTube. They're doing this for value and for changing their business. It's two things, right? It's adapting to the new pressures and challenges of the industry, but also, justifying it through kind of traditional means.
Okay, so let's assume that automation is something that a warehouse wants to pursue. Where do we even get started? What are some of the characteristics that go into a good automation solution that we should be thinking about here?
So definitely value, right? So, impacting a small part of the business isn't as interesting as impacting a bigger part of the business. So customers, should look at where their labor is, where their needs are, where their bottlenecks and challenges are, right? If they have an old building that used to be retail fulfillment, and now they're using the same old building for e-com fulfillment, there might be some bottlenecks and adoption that hasn't happened that they, are being faced with. So certainly value and solving their problems, right, is the first obvious thing. But, beyond that, solutions that are flexible, solutions that are simple, scalable is another characteristic. Because everything's changing, right? For the last 3-4 years, certainly since the pandemic, and then ongoing, in addition to the industry pressures, nobody knows what's gonna around the corner, really. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, and automation solutions that can adapt to a wide range of potential outcomes and futures are key. So customers think about value. They should think about how the solutions that they pursue can be flexible to changing needs.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's talk about each of these. One, flexible, simple, scalable. Those are three very important points. Flexible is important because you don't want to be locked in to a system that's not going to be able to accommodate your needs months from now or years from now, right? So that must be, I would think, almost number one, would it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, order profiles change, SKU mixes change, and you can't design around what you do today. You have to design for the future.
Mhm.
And given that uncertainty, flexibility is key to be able to again, to cover the broadest range of possible directions.
Yeah, you got to ramp up during peak periods. You got to ramp down for low periods, and so it has to be something that can adjust it on almost at a moment's notice. So I can see how that could be important. You said
Definitely.
simple, which I almost want to laugh because nothing is simple these days in warehouse operations. But what do we mean by that? How is what kind of simplicity is important in a good warehouse solution?
Yeah, I think simplicity really has a couple factors, but it's really kind of around, the usability of the system, and that's for the whole staff, right? So if there's a system that a human is going to interact with kind of on an operational basis, say there's an inductor who's putting goods into a system, their lived experience needs to be, desirable. They need to be, they need to be able to easily train and come up to speed and be productive quickly.
Mhm.
Because there's so much turnover and things going on in the workforce. But it also, in terms of simplicity and usability, it's on the maintenance side, right? At the end of the day, the folks who are in the building who are maintaining equipment are a key stakeholder of an automation program. And so they need to be really acknowledged as well. So their job also needs to be simple. So you can't really require a PhD from a top university to work in a warehouse and maintain equipment. It's much more dynamic, and it needs to be uh, it's much more dynamic, and you need to be much more flexible with the folks who interact with the technology.
Mhm. And on top of that, I would think it'd be very important that any new solution integrate well with legacy systems already there, because you're not going to throw out every single bit of old automation or information system you had to put in something new. So don't you have to evaluate that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most automation programs, by the numbers, I think are in brownfield operations, buildings that are dependent on day in and day out throughout the year. And so to integrate, a new solution or automation into the warehouse needs to be very thoughtfully done, often alongside shipping, production orders or normal course of business while a solution is being put in place.
Mhm. You mentioned the challenge of getting enough labor to staff these warehouses, which of course is a little ironic because we're talking about automation that is supposed to replace labor, but indeed that's not happening right now. We still need people in the warehouse. So how can warehouses use automation to retain talent?
A couple ways. One is, a lot of the automation that's happening is replacing kind of the more mundane tasks. And so somebody, is if their job is not particularly exciting, if you can automate that solution and have, the workforce be in a little more involved process, a little more, dynamic environment, it can improve retention that way. And then another one is that, frankly, people like to be around automation. People like to, work with automation, and they find it exciting. So I think inherently, working around kind of, again, the more mundane processes where there's a lot of labor, that's key to kind of improving, the retention of staff in a warehouse. And then also, giving folks the opportunity to interact with the automation can help retain talent as well.
Well, one of the things we want to do in retaining and, for that matter, attracting talent is to appeal to younger generations of workers. And the idea is that those younger generations are much more accepting of automation. In fact, they enjoy, as you say, working with it. So there is a generational aspect that's an advantage there as well, right?
I would say that that could be the case, but we hear anecdotes all the time of seasoned staff who've been in warehouses for many years delaying their retirement because
Oh,
their job
really?
is now different and changed, and they want to be around the automation. So I think it can kind of cut both ways.
Interesting. Maybe they're tired of walking those millions of miles and lifting those heavy things that now robots can do for them.
Yeah.
That's great to know that it does cross generational lines. Well, thank you so much, Noah, for those insights into how automation is today being applied in the warehouse and how we have indeed got past that point of early acceptance. It's really exciting to hear about what's going on. I want to take a moment, though, to ask you about Berkshire Grey. Where do you guys fit into the picture in what we're talking about here today?
A lot of our customers are highly innovative. They're already, adopting technology. They're thinking about it kind of broadly throughout their network. And so, Berkshire Grey, in terms of where we are, is, we are proliferating and growing our deployments and growing our automation footprint all the time. So I think we are proud to be a part of the movement and the evolution, and how robotics and automation are enabling tasks that were not able to be automated before.
Well, thank you for that. Now you can hear an extended discussion of this topic, far extended, an hour long at a webinar sponsored by Berkshire Grey and scheduled for October 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll have a link in the notes to this video that takes you to the registration page for that event. So join us then. Once again, Noah Maynard of Berkshire Grey, thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Robert.